Matt and JD back for round number 7 recap of the Chicago Open. Take it away, JD.
Hey, so I'm going into my last game, and I'll be honest, I'm not feeling that great. I'm coming off 2 losses, and especially so the one loss I kind of started to make my peace with because it was the most instructive game, and I actually felt kind of like energized about what I learned from that game. But then the game that I just finished, I had a really nice game, and I just calculated badly. And the game was just over in a few moves. So I didn't quite feel so great going into this game. But I was happy to see D4, D5. Like this is what I want. I don't want a King's Indian. I don't want a Bononi. I don't want a Dutch. I don't want. This is what I want. This is like what I feel good in. So we get a Slav, and now I'm like super happy because I was like, I've actually had this. I've had the exchange Slav from the white side multiple times now, recently, and over the board chess. And I get this, and every time I've had this in over the board chess, we've ended up with this Queen B6 idea. It's what I see more than anything. But I'm already thinking so I know Knight C3, which offers up a tactical idea. I really am not wanting to go into anything sharp, which is why I was kind of happy to see the exchange law, but I'm not out of the sharp woods yet because I know in the course, if they play here, I got to play E4. I just have to. And I was sitting here I was tired and I was trying to think of this in my head. And I was just trying to remember all the lines in case he went that way. And I really couldn't remember them. In fact, I was just sitting here struggling, what if he just plays this?
Yeah.
Because I was because I was oh, he's supposed to go here, but this is an annoying check. What? I don't remember.
Yeah, you're trying to you're trying to figure out all the lines over the board while you're already tired.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember everything. And I was like, please don't do that. I don't want that. Just play E6 and get me into this comfortable position where I know a lot of the ideas and I'll feel good. And then he hit me with this. And I was like, I've never seen this before. This can't be good. And so then I went into kind of a deep think. And I was like, okay, he's kind of doing the same thing to me I'm trying to do to him.
Yeah.
If I bring the knight out, is he going to take it? And I was like, maybe I should play F3 and E4. But I didn't want to do that. I kind of thought I should just play bishop or queen to D2 and just develop normally, which in retrospect I probably should have done. But I thought there must be some way to punish this, and there kind of is. And it is queen D2 is the idea. And the point is, if he goes E6, we hit with this E4 plan again, and these lines go nuts. Yeah. And I don't know that I would have had the wherewithal to do this anyway, even if I had seen it and decided it was best. So
you talked about that a bit in my game too. After he plays E6 there, his bishop is boxed out from helping on the queen side.
Yeah, it's even worse than in your game. You at least had this knight already. So the point is that after takes here, I do give this check, and if he tries to block this way, he can. We can do something like this. We get D5, and he's got to take it, and
knight takes.
Yeah, it's getting. I mean, yeah, knight takes, and this is a nice idea that I've actually seen before. This bishop's untouchable.
Yeah, so he's already almost lost here after knight takes
I think
D5.
he's totally lost here. I think this is is this not mate?
This one is mate, yeah. But even after knight takes D5, he doesn't have a good move.
So this idea is the way to go. And really, I probably should have found it because we have some lines in the course we cover after bishop to F5. And against bishop to F5, this is after the knights come out. We're doing this E4 idea anyway. So something well, okay, not here because we can play knight takes D5, but after... not here. So I don't remember.
That's okay.
I guess it's when the bishop's back here against they play knight C6. We play here and then they play here. Now we can play our E4 ideas. Anyway, we got here and I played this check because I had some ideas that if he went here, I was going to play this, which is sneaky because I'm threatening here and he can't take my queen.
That's a really strong move. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had this idea because I kind of thought he didn't want to put the knight here, and I thought he probably doesn't want to move the bishop back, but he did want to move the bishop back.
If knight c6 there, were you looking at e4?
If against knight c6, no, I was looking at taking
Okay.
because I hit the queen and I just went a pawn.
Queen takes b. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's anyway. Uh, so he drops back, and again, similar to my other game, I didn't really want to put the queen on c2 because I was like, it's gonna get kicked, but that's probably the best move. So I went to b3 because I was like, oh, he'll take, and I'll get the files, and that turns out to be total rubbish here. He plays here, I strike, he takes, and this is obnoxious because like the b4 square is so
You
good
can't
for
kick him.
him.
Yeah. So should you have taken his queen on b6?
Absolutely. I should have taken his queen to b6 and put my stuff on b5.
It's
And like
almost the
that would have been
same. Yeah, like colors
yeah.
flipped.
Yeah. So and I think I would have had a pretty comfortable advantage if I had done that instead. But he did it to me, came out here, and I started to think that like I'm actually maybe worse. Uh I, I am slightly worse. I played knight f6, and I was like, all right, the position's changed dramatically from when I first played bishop g5. Do I really actually want to take that knight? And I was like, you know what? That's why you put it out here on g5 is to take the knight. So take the damn knight, which is not how you should think about chess. Like that was a really inflexible way of thinking. It's not bad. It's like it's equal to the best move, but like that's really not how you should be thinking about chess. So I took it. He takes. I castled. He played here, and like I started to really worry about this pawn. How am I going to defend it? It's really awkward. I want to play on this C and A file, so I don't want to have to stick a bishop here. I sure don't want to have to stick a knight to C1. Like it's really awkward.
And we talk
So
about this idea in our courses quite a bit. Like, you really don't want to have the weakest pawn on the board. Like our Carol course in particular from the black side, we always try
yeah,
to give white the weakest pawn. Here you have the weakest pawn. And it's just, even though the computer could hold this probably all day long against
yeah,
another computer, like it's really uncomfortable to keep that pawn defended.
for sure. I played king to e7. I brought the rook up. My idea was like, haha, now you can't go knight a5.
I
This was
like
my
it.
whole plan. He played bishop to d6 and said, haha, put your rook back. So I did. So because if I don't put my rook back, he has discovery threats,
hmm
which are pretty obnoxious.
Knight
So
b4, yeah,
yeah.
something.
So I put it back, and now he puts a new piece there. And this kind of I played here, and like this is the moment where he kind of let me off the hook. He played here, and now I get to take, and I play knight a4, which is a nice move because he's got a weak square too, and he can't easily. This is giving me control of the c file.
Considering the
Like
queens came off 11 moves ago, you're playing this really well, JD. You're outplaying him in a harder to play position.
this is a pretty hard to play position. Uh, so I play here, and my idea. And so I should qualify that like he going back to his bishop g4. I bet he spent 25 minutes coming up with bishop g4. And then I gave almost all that time back coming up, trying to figure out how to refute the damn thing.
hmm
Uh, anyway, so he was clearly uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable. I was done playing. I was not, I didn't want to do anything where I had to calculate a lot. I didn't feel good. I didn't want to play. And it was clear that he didn't want to play either. You can tell from his body language, he's doing a lot of like, and like a lot of him hawing. And like, I could tell he was not happy.
Yeah.
So I got to this position, and I thought, all right, I've got absolute control of the C file. He played here, and I played knight c5, and I offered a draw, and he went immediately sold. Like he just like almost like jumped out of his chair to agree to a draw. I should have waited one more move
To see if he takes.
because if he plays the natural move that I was kind of worried about this whole time, knight a5, just trying to go win this pawn. The idea of taking and then taking here. I actually have a nice move. I can play knight d3. And if he goes here to win a rook, well, I grab this. And then he grabs a rook. I grab here. I've still got great control of the c file. And again, we see this 2 minors for the rook imbalance.
Aren't the rook and pawn better than two minors?
Not here. Not here.
Not
And
usually. That was a joke.
yeah, yeah. So, and I'm okay. because like of all the examples of the minors beating the rooks, this is like the least beating the rooks that
Yeah,
we've seen.
because you don't have a bishop. You don't.
Yeah, I
You
don't.
have
Yeah, I
some.
don't have a bishop. I don't have a bishop. So, but this is still quite good, and it probably should have been able to. I don't know if he. I mean, really, if he plays here, sorry, if he plays here instead, and I take with the rook, the problem is that um, he can still play here, and I have got no. Oh, sorry, not that. Sorry, king.
King d6 first,
Yeah,
maybe.
king b6 first, and then I really have got no good way to defend to double my rooks effectively on the file because he can. Uh, there's all kinds of forking problems, and so it's this is zeros. It's all zeros.
Can you
The
show us one other line at the draw offer? Rook to b8 for black,
so here,
just to highlight why that doesn't work. Yeah, rook to b8.
rook to b8, like right here.
Yeah,
Well, I can just play knight takes a6, or probably knight takes b7. Yeah, knight takes b7 also is the same.
yeah.
And I just won a pawn and I'm getting in. So
Because that might look like the natural move at first for black. Like, can they use the rook to defend? But yeah, you can just take.
and not that really, yeah. So this was I was okay to draw. Like it was the lowest rated player I played. He was 1912 or something. And it was I was happy to get out of this and not lose.
So overall, though, 3.5 out of 7. I mean, you played most of your rounds were players in the 2000s,
Yeah, I had one player who was unrated, but his FIDE rating was about 2000, which means he was close to 2100 USCF.
right?
And that was one of my wins for the record. Uh,
So overall, I felt like you had a really good result.
yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy. I wish I had lost the first games and finished on a high instead of the other way around. Like that would have been better. I did pick up quite a few rating points. I think 19 rating points is what I gained this tournament, so I can't complain too much. And I got to play a couple nice games, and I got a couple games where I get to really learn something from them. So I'm I don't have too much to complain about. How did you finish, Matt?
All right, we'll jump into my last game. I was going to lose rating points no matter what, no matter how this game ends, but
I thought if you got like 6 brilliances in this game, you got a bonus.
that would be nice. Yeah. Need to talk to Eric. So I got a King's Indian defense, and this was another kid. I don't know how old he was, probably 12, I would guess. And we get this h3 line again. And I thought he played this pretty well. So he very quickly brings his knight to c5. I go knight to g3, and after c6, here I kind of mixed up some ideas. I used to play the h3 kid with this knight heading to f3 early on, so it never came to e2. And in a lot of those lines, what would happen is the knight goes to f3 and d2 to guard this e pawn.
Hmm.
And when you don't have to bring the knight to d2, usually you put the queen on d2, and then maybe you
Yeah,
put the bishop on d3 and tuck it back.
yeah,
So in this position, I'm thinking, oh, let's go queen d2. I'm going to put the bishop here, h pawn, bishop h6, check, check, checkmate. That's the
yeah,
plan. I'm still in aggressive mode from earlier around this day.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, you mentioned this, maybe bishop to e2 was better. Defending this pawn twice, queen and bishop, because it's attacked twice. And
yeah.
now the h pawn is ready to go. It just makes sense.
Agreed. And you know where I learned that bishop e2 move, Matt?
Let's hear it.
You told me to play it
Yeah.
in the course that you created.
Yeah. Oh, that little course, that little classical D4 course. That's right. I'll
Yeah,
I'll have
yeah,
to I'll have to look at that some, dust
yeah, yeah,
dust off my version.
yeah.
So he quickly takes in the center and bishop d7. And now here I'm kind of a little bit worried. I'm thinking, okay, well, I want this kingside attack. I want this h pawn running, but I don't know if I want to queenside castle with the open c file. And I mean, he already has the pawn on a5, the knight here, the bishop pointing over here. I didn't feel completely comfortable just castling queenside into this position. So I go bishop to e2. I think f3 might have been a small improvement.
Yeah.
He goes a4. And now at this point, I should probably play g5, kicking the knight, and then h4. And
My
oftentimes, go
my
ahead.
argument why bishop e2 maybe is not so good here anymore is that like F3 lets you play H4. Bishop
Good point.
E2 does not.
Yeah, so it's only bishop e2 is only useful in the current position if it's helping the king move.
Yeah. Which,
And I think at this point I was kind of set on kingside castling, so that's
yeah.
probably part of why I played it.
Hmm.
But I agree with you. I think that the point in this position is to still push the h pawn, and maybe the king even sits on f2 in some cases. Like the king
Yeah.
doesn't have to castle and leave the rook on h1. Bishop e2, a4, castle, knight e8, king h2. And here, head flashbacks to the queen h4 idea, from my earlier kid game. So I'm
It's
thinking,
no
well,
good here. It's no good here.
yeah, so I go king h2 so that if queen comes to h4, I can trap the queen. That was
Yeah.
my plan. Queen goes this way, pawn to b4. Now this move, I have to admit something here. I spent a lot of time on this move. I did not consider queen takes b4. Like, how do I not even consider queen takes b4? I looked at everything else but queen takes b4. But then he goes queen takes b4, and I'm like, oh, that's awkward. But just to kind of show what I was looking at, if he goes A takes B, for example, I was going to allow the queen for two rooks because in the end, I can trap his rook. So I thought I was being kind of sneaky here.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't go for that, he has to play a move like queen d8. And now I'm just better. I got all of his pieces to retreat. I got both bishops pointing queenside. Both my rooks are ready to play queenside, and he's kind of feeling bad about these pieces on the king side.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
so the move b4 is great, but I missed if there's no queen takes b4, I
It,
missed it completely.
it's still good even if he can take it. It's not.
So I lucked out. Yeah, I have enough play here where it's still okay. So I'm down a pawn, but what I can do is I can blockade this b7 pawn and kind of use the fact that all my pieces are playing queenside to create some play over here. So he trades queens. I was okay with that queen trade. It's possible like bishop to b5 is a little bit better. The computer likes that better, not allowing the queen trade. But queens got traded off. Now here, my goal is to play for activity. I brought that back to defend e4, and here I start to push forward. I would love to win this a pawn back and have the bishop pair with active pieces. That's my goal. Rook c7, and now I put a rook on c1, and I'm trying to just apply pressure to the opponent, right? He can't move his knight very easily because it's now pinned to the rook. And also the knight is guarding the a4 pawn. So he pushes, and now I go rook c4. The idea here is I want this bishop to come to b3, b4, put a rook on c3, and then win the pawn. Very
Yeah.
straightforward. Moves the knight. I play f3. This is to guard e4, so it kind of frees up the knight and rook if they need to move. All right, here's bishop to b4, getting ready to win the a pawn. And this is kind of a key moment. I was okay with his bishop coming to g5 because after bishop to g5, the worst case scenario is the bishop heads to e3, but what does he do from there? I want to win the a3 pawn still.
Yeah.
So I made the decision that I'm okay with bishop g5. This rook has to go to c2 so that this rook can go to c3. If this rook goes to c3, I had to keep watching this knight b6 idea. The front rook is trapped.
Yeah.
It's a little weird. So b6, he's trying to play solid. I come back. He doubles, but now I insert bishop to c6, hitting the rook, and he has to leave the defense of the a pawn. But I think he made a good choice here. You see he's about to play f5. He's fighting for this counterplay on the king side. And I played the beginning of the game very quickly. So both games this last day, I started out playing fast, saved the time for later, and it paid off. Because here I needed that time to calculate. I took a3. He brings the knight back, and now I play bishop to b5. And the idea is this bishop controls all of the knight squares on b8. That knight does not have any moves. So I'm playing for control. He gets his break in.
So
And here
it was right here that I came in to check on your game. And I remember thinking, I'm pretty sure Matt's winning. I think it's going to take a long time. I'm going to go to the bar.
yes. Was Presta J done at that point,
I don't remember if he was done.
or did he join you later?
He was at the bar before you were. I'll tell
Yeah,
you that.
that's true. Okay, so here I made the decision to take, and the reason for this is because the A3 bishop had no use there, but his knight was attacking E4. I needed to get rid of that threat. And I also felt that this bishop dominates this knight long term. So as
Mhm.
long as I can figure out what's happening over on the king side in the center, I should be in good shape. And I calculated that this worked pretty well. E takes, G takes, and king to G2 with the idea of knight G3 and my knight supports the light squares. And he's not able to get his rook in here because that was critical. I couldn't allow rook F2 or rook F3.
He's still got a pretty crap rook or crap bishop. It's all of these pawns are still in the wrong color for him.
Yeah, you're right. So take, take, king F7, and here comes my knight. Rook D8. Bishop back to D3. This was a mistake, and this was kind of bad calculation on my part. I thought that he had to move this pawn. I was thinking there's no way black can allow me to win that pawn for free. But the problem is he goes knight D7 and says, all right, be my guest. Take the pawn. I'm going to get my pieces very active. You're going to have to play a position like this where you're tied down. My rook comes into the game, rook to A8. Everything for me is defensive, and it's actually really hard to win this type of position.
Yeah, I think that was a really nice idea that your opponent came up with. I do remember that. Yeah, we looked at this for a while in the hotel room, and yeah, that's a really impressive move. This knight D7 that he came up with,
Yeah, so I think what I should have done is played pawn to A4
which
or
was
rook to B2.
I
Yeah,
do recall that was that was my main idea. I was like, you got to pass pawn, push it.
yeah, and you were 100% right. Like, there's no reason to be worried about knight D7. I can still keep pushing. Knight F6, I can still keep pushing. Take this pawn. Bishop C4 pin. This is just big problems. That'll drop the knight. So
Yeah,
pushing the A pawn, definitely the way to go. Okay, so bishop D3, he goes back. This, I think, is a really critical point. It's not the engine's favorite move, but I played rook to B2. And the idea here is I want activity. I
hmm
can win this game if I can keep all my pieces active and allow him to make mistakes. So it was a practical decision and it worked out. He goes knight F6. I drop the rook down with check. At this point, he has to play king F8. King F8's the only move. And it's hard to see why. There's a lot to calculate here. He goes king to E8, and this falls for a tactic. Knight F5, and I'm threatening knight G6, knight G7 check, followed by knight E6 check. So I'm going to check the king. He moves, check again. It forks the king and rook. He took D5. I do the checks. King G8 is also losing. He played here, bishop B5 check, and he immediately resigned.
yeah, he's got to give up the rook.
Yeah, free rook. You take with
Indeed.
rook or bishop. Probably bishop's better.
Another nice game here. I'm a very different. So this game kind of demonstrates the other way that the King's Indian can be won. There's the king side attack, which is nice, but really the way that I prefer to win is more like you did, which is where like the king side gets kind of blocked and nothing happens, and then we go for that traditional queenside play. Is I really tend to feel a lot safer that
Mhm.
way. And I thought this was a really nice game. I quite enjoyed it.
Thanks. Yeah, it is fun kind of being able to play kingside and queenside in these positions.
We just got to figure out how to play in the center also, and then we'll really be set.
Yeah, that's true. So to recap the final scores, I ended up with 4.5 out of 7. Lost like 14 rating points. You ended up with 3.5 out of 7. Gained, you said about 20 points,
19.
19 points. And Presta J ended up with 5 out of 7. He tied for a prize. And I think he gained like 80 points. I might be a little bit off on that, but he gained quite a few rating
Yeah, he said
points.
they were going to kick him out of the under 1500 section.
Oh, really? Yeah, they probably should. Don't let him
Yeah,
sandbag.
I'm pretty sure he crept up over 1500. I got I think my performance rating was like 2036, so at just around 1900, and you're still a master.
Yep. So we were all happy with that.
They did not take your title away. So
After the first couple days, I wasn't sure. All right. Well, thanks everyone who stuck around for all the recaps. Have a good day.